This is a big research effort that we're leading really to understand the people analytics technology market. So this is a study that we are in the middle of a journey on. And so, and this is Red Thread. I forgot that I threw that in the beginning. We're a human capital research and advisory firm. So we're, as I said, in the beginning of our journey. We started at the PAFOW San Francisco show, where we asked folks there, we said, what do you care about when it comes to people analytics technology? What do you most want to know? What should we be asking? We actually put a poll up for people to take at the show, and then we went and did a series of interviews with both vendors and then with practitioners to say, help us understand what we're seeing in this data. Help us really know what we need to be asking about this space. We then did a comprehensive literature review, which we've gone ahead and posted onto our website. And now we're in the middle of a vendor survey. And so if there are vendors in the room who have not heard from us, a lot of you have and have completed the survey. But if you haven't, it's open till May 3rd. And this is my plea. Please complete it so that we can have a really robust set of data to share. What I'm going to share with you today is based on the 15 vendors who have taken the survey to date. It's been open for 2 weeks. We've got, like I said, another 2 weeks. So I'm going to caveat what I'm sharing with you with the fact that this is not what it's going to be. And part of what I'm sharing with you is hopefully, particularly for the vendors in the room, to encourage you to go ahead and finish that survey. But before that, I get to that, I want to tell you all a little story. It's about the summer after I graduated high school. And I had the ultimate job of being a lifeguard. And so I'm from Tucson, Arizona. And if you know anything about Arizona, you know that it's hot in the summer. And it was a good time to be a lifeguard because it was an important moment in my life, right? For so many of you, after you've completed high school, you know that you're going to be going off to these great things. In my case, I had had this amazing growth experience. I'd never been out of Arizona until I was 16. And so in the previous year and a half, I had gone to Washington, D.C. I'd met all these people. My horizons were expanding. I was growing so much. At the same time, I had said I was going to go to the University of Arizona, which I was really, I thought, excited about. I had a scholarship. I had all this potential. But as I sat there on that lifeguard stand in the hot sun, twirling my whistle, I got this unsettled feeling in my gut. It's like, I'm not sure this is the right path. I'm not sure I made a good decision. And ultimately, I figured out the reason for that was because I didn't have a clear framework for understanding why was I going to the University of Arizona. My whole family had gone there. Didn't I want something else? Didn't I want maybe just something a little bit different? And so I came up with a framework to help me decide as I was sitting there day after day after day watching small children. And at the end, about 3 or 4 weeks later, I made what turned out to be a life-changing decision. And I told the University of Arizona, I'm not going there. And I made the decision to go to a small women's college in South Central Virginia that I had never seen, which at the time, and even now looking back, was a somewhat crazy idea. But the fact was that I knew then why I was making that decision. So why do I share this story with you? I share it because I think from what we're seeing that the people analytics technology market is very similar to that teenager who was sitting there, growing quickly, full of tons of potential, but really just a bit disorganized. And so what I'm hoping we're doing with this research is providing this moment, this pause, this, you can think of the whistle, for us to think about where this space is going and to influence it. Because the decisions we make, the tech we adopt, is going to impact millions of people's lives, and we need to be intentional. So, growing quickly. We I know that Al just shared that there's 400 and some odd vendors in this space, but as we've been tracking the number of vendors in this space, we've identified 86 who we very clearly think are within just people analytics. We're not talking about some of those who have people analytics enabled capabilities, but those who are specifically in this space. And you can see that we have seen incredible growth in them, 146% in just the last 10 years. So I know there was a question just a moment ago about how quickly they've grown. And it's really accelerated here over the last period. But what we wanted to understand with this research is how quickly are the vendors themselves growing? So we asked about customers. And this is what we're finding so far. Again, I'm caveating, we have 15 vendors here. When we actually report the results, it'll be a lot more. But so we're seeing increasing, very rapid numbers of customer acquisition. What's interesting, though, and this is the question that none of our vendor friends want to answer, but I promise my soul to them that the individual responses won't be reported, is when we look at revenue. So remember that last one, 53%, 63%? We're seeing a slower revenue growth rate, which as good data scientists, we all say, what's happening there? And we will be digging into that a lot more when we have vendor briefings and as our data set gets a bit more robust. But clearly, high growth, things are changing. Great potential. So I mentioned that we did 20 interviews before we even wrote the survey. And then one of the questions that we asked was, what are the specific challenges you're trying to address with your technology? And here's just a quick word cloud of what that was. And again, these are responses from vendors. So we're talking about being predictive, looking at attrition, agility, scaling, and simplify. Those two I call out because when we did the actual interviews with the practitioners, that's what we heard a lot of, which was a little bit different than everything else you see here. I heard a lot of augmentation, scale, simplify, take a process that we already have and make it better. But the other thing I heard in these conversations was a lot about risk. So this is data from Insight 222 showing that 81% of people analytics leaders think that their projects are jeopardized by ethics or security issues, privacy issues. And when we look at some data from CIPD, we see that that's backed up. HR might be talking about data transparency and insights, but not that many other folks are. And here's some interesting data, though, this is ours to lose. Meaning, when you look at Adamsen's Trust Barometer, you can see that they have they look at trust in all sorts of social institutions, governments, church, small business, or small government, big government, et cetera. And the Trust Barometer is actually the highest for employers, for the place that you work. And you can see amongst young people, it's even higher. So we all know that this is a big issue, but I really think this is something to lose. But when it comes to the vendors are leaving it to you all. So again, small n, but 1 in 5 vendors say they think they have a role in designing systems that enable customers to manage their data ethically. And then 1 in 3 protecting against overreach. So basically, some of them are thinking about this, but it's up to organizational leaders to be asking the questions and then to be making the decisions. But I think this is, again, an opportunity for the buyers to say, I expect you to have an ethical charter. I expect you to talk to me about these things. We've got a whole series of questions, which we're not reporting on yet, that go into what the vendors, are actually doing to drive some of these ethical decisions. And I think that if customers ask for it, we'll get to see a lot more of it. All right, and then a bit disorganized. This is a word cloud of what we asked people when we asked people what their differentiation was. Completely overwhelming and not at all useful, which is generally what we tend to see. And that's why we'll be doing vendor briefings to get a better sense of how we want to talk about this. But what's interesting is the capabilities that the vendors then go on to say they can do. So about 80% say they provide continuous on-demand results. 80% report that they're doing performing data mining. 75% claim that they can do database stories. This might be my favorite one right now because we're going to go and ask, what does that even mean for you? Because I don't know that folks know the answer to that. So that's why we do briefings as well. And then 50% report that they're using AI. But when we tried to understand the market, what's happening? I'm sorry. We also asked them about what part of talent management they're supporting. And so you can see less on talent acquisition, a lot on engagement and retention. But when in those interviews, we asked folks, how do you put this market together? This is what we got. Literally, just complete chaos. Every answer was different. So here's how we're starting to think about it. And I'd love your all's feedback over cocktails, and this will be my last series of slides. So, we're asking the question, what is the organization wanting to do? And so we've divided it into the organization wants to collect data. They want to integrate data. They want to manage it. They want to describe it, explore and predict it, augment their team, or share it. And then we've built things all around what that specifically is. And what our intention is to then, if any of you have seen Red Thread research, what we do is we will put companies in the middle and then say, vendor A, let's say it's Culture Amp. 30% of their effort is on recruiting, 20% is on talent development, 60% on engagement, whatever. And then they focus on doing sharing, integrating, and describing. So the intention is to create an interactive tool so that you all can go and say, I'm focused on trying to integrate right now. Who does that, and for what data sets do they do that? And then we'll have a bunch of other data in the tool itself. So I don't know yet that this is 100% the right way to think about it, particularly with regard to the things in the circle. But I do know that it needs to be focused on what practitioners are trying to do and the problems they're trying to solve, and that no one vendor can get shoved into just one part of this. So I would really welcome your thoughts, your feedback on how to make this better as we're going through this research process. So we're going to be answering a lot more questions in the final report. You can see things here, how big is the market, how do the vendors typically sell and price, et cetera. And if you want to participate, please, let's get connected. We have the survey for the vendors, as I mentioned. We'll be doing practitioner interviews and a couple of small roundtables to get feedback on results. And then finally, for anybody who's interested in this project, on our Red Thread site, you can actually follow the project, and as we have new things come up, we'll email you and say, hey, we just published this, or hey, what do you think about that? And you can be involved. So with that, thank you very much. Let's get drinks.